would stand and say, God, I am in agreement with whatever you're doing. Whatever, however, whenever you want to do it. God, you are God. So I'm standing here saying, God, I'll do it. If you say stand still, I'm going to stand still. If you say move, I'm going to move. If you say worship right here, God, even though I'm in the midst of a circumstances where I don't know how to lift my hands, I don't have the strength to lift my hands, I don't know what to say when I stand before the congregation of the righteous, I'm still going to do it. Why? Because I believe that you are getting ready to deliver this time. And in the midst of this time, deliverance, in the midst of God saying that this is the time that He's going to bring you out. I love this part. I love this part. The Bible declares that Moses led the children of Israel out. You all heard the story last week. And they get to the Red Sea. And it was right there at the Red Sea experience that then they started having a flashback from Egypt. And can I tell you, there is something dangerous for having a flashback when it's not a godly flashback. Can I tell you, there is something very deadly to your future and to your destiny when you have a flashback of where you've been and not the goodness of God. There is something very deadly about having a flashback about the bondage that you just got delivered from and the promise that you haven't gotten into yet. There is something very dangerous about that. Why? Because the first thing out of their mouths when they got to the Red Sea was, were there no graves in Egypt? See, some of us, rather than deciding that we're going to hold to the promise, and even though the promise has not gotten here yet, we're going to still give God that kind of praise and say, I already got it. Rather than holding on to that kind of prophetic praise, what we do is we start looking back. And when you begin to look back, you begin to look and say, you know what, well, the old pastor didn't preach that message, but just every now and then. Hello. You know, the old boss, he didn't really go off on me, but every now and then. The old spouse didn't knock me upside the head, but every once in a while when they went out and got drunk. The old situation really wasn't that bad. But God is saying, if you are at the Red Sea, if you're at the shore, just stand right there. Stand right there. Stand. The scripture says that they had been led out of Egypt, and they found themselves, picture it, right there on the brink of the Red Sea. Mountains on either side of them, and Pharaoh and his army behind them. And what are they to do? The scripture says that God began to talk to Moses and said, Moses, this is what I need you to do. Lift up your rod. And in the midst of God telling Moses, lift up his rod, what is that saying to the 21st century church? What's in your hand? What things have God put in your hand that God will raise up to bring out your deliverance? What things has God put in your hand to bring your miracle to you? What things have God put in your hand that will open up the way in front of you? But rather than saying to the people of God, I have nothing. Moses declared, he said, God, if you say this is the route that we're going, this is the route that we're going. And so here we are, just about on the brink of our miracle, just about on the brink of our deliverance, just about on the brink of where God is getting ready to take us. But rather than going forward, there's a challenge. Rather than moving into our promise, there's a challenge. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, there's just a couple things that I want to talk to you about.
Neighbor, there's just a couple things I want to talk to you about.
Right before you get your deliverance, I want you to know that the scripture says, fear not. Irregardless of how it looks and in spite of what the circumstances are, touch your neighbor and say, neighbor, don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
That's what the young people say. That's what the young people say. They say, don't be scared. And what that is indicative of, Reverend M, is saying, don't be scared of what's going to happen. Don't be scared of what's going on. Don't be afraid of the circumstance and the situation. I know that it looks like there's not going to be any food, there's not going to be any resources, there's not going to be enough money. We're runaways, we're strays. They try to come after us and they're trying to get us. But can I tell you, look at your neighbor and tell them with your prophetic voice and say, neighbor, don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Fear not, fear not, fear not.
Fear not.
There is something that God has led you to that looks like it is insurmountable. There is a way that God has led you through looks like everything is falling out from under you, fear not. But Pastor, my relationship is going south. My issues are coming up, and stuff is happening on every hand. Fear not. But Brother Pastor, you say, don't be scared, fear not. Isn't that just like what God is saying to us? When all hell is breaking loose, don't be afraid. Why is that? Why is God saying to the people of God, fear not? Why? Because God knows what the future holds. Come in, Jeremiah, behold, I know the plans that I have for you. Thoughts of good and not evil, to give you a hope and an expected end. People of God, do you not understand that wherever God leads you to, God is able to bring you through?